Okay, we are looking at one of your fantasy football teams for 2023,
That's
an
right.
in-season team, and we're going to break it down and try and give some advice on maybe some moves that you can make to win your leagues here in 2023. Do us a favor, go ahead and drop a like to show some love. Subscribe if you like fantasy content, and go ahead and comment down below any advice that you would give to this person whose team we are reviewing. By the way, do you want your team reviewed by Badaki and myself?
Come on.
Well, if you want that to happen for redraft, best ball, in-season formats, then go ahead and use our code LAND, L-A-N-D, when signing up at flockfantasy.com. There's a pinned comment in the description. All you got to do is choose that mother flocker tier, DM us on Discord, and we'll look at making a video or a live stream with your team. So shout out to CrimeLord. He is the first team that we are looking at today. In a little bit of context, this is a 10-team, 1-quarterback, full PPR league. And he says this is the first redraft of the season. He did this in April. And he's asking us to have a look at this team. So this was a team drafted in April. I mean, for the first thing I would say, just to anyone drafting, drafting in April is going to be either really good for your team or really bad for your team.
Yeah.
You're going to find some great steals, or you're going to draft foundational players, and they might not even be on the team that you drafted anymore. So just keep that in mind. I mean, before the draft, we didn't know where DeAndre Swift was. We didn't know that Dalvin Cook was going to get moved. We didn't know that Ken Walker got a backfield mate. So just keep all those things in mind. But let's look at his team here. He is the first team, so he drafted from the 101.
Yep.
And his team looks like Justin Jefferson. We'll go wide receivers first. Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Jordan Addison, Jamison Williams, and Gabe Davis. Those are his wide receivers. Now we look at the running backs. He got Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, J.K. Dobbins, Zach Charbonnet, the little handcuff there. So that's his running back room, just those 4 guys. And then at quarterback, we have Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson. And at tight end, we have Pat Freiermuth and Irv Smith. So there was something in particular that stood out to me that I'll just go ahead and attack here.
Yeah.
In a 10-team league, I think you need to be drafting a little bit differently than how you would in a 12-man league. And one of those ways that you should be drafting differently is targeting impact quarterback and tight ends earlier in your draft, because you want that advantage in the small areas of a team. So, for example, the tight end position, you have Pat Freiermuth. That's fine. Pat Freiermuth is a fine starter, but Pat Freiermuth, it's unlikely that he is going to win people their fantasy leagues. In this sort of format, I would have reached on a tight end. I mean, you can see Team 3 went Travis Kelce at the 1-3.
Yeah.
I don't think that's crazy. I really don't think that's crazy, given the advantage he's going to give you in a 10-team league. In 10-team leagues, everybody's team looks great. I mean, look across the board. All these teams look pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But that's because we, for the most part, play in a 12-man league.
Yeah.
So to anyone out there, if you are playing in a 10-man league this year, I would suggest to prioritize tight ends earlier than you normally would in a 12-man. And Travis Kelce would be one of my favorite first-round picks in this sort of format. But then also seeing how far Mark Andrews fell, all the way to the 4-2. I mean, I know you're on the edge, so it's tough to not take Jalen Waddle. But we had a chance to draft Hawkinson. We had a chance to draft George Kittle. We had a chance to draft even Darren Waller at the 7-1, who I've talked about being a potential league winner this year. And he was already on the Giants at that time. So, I mean, you just think about it. Pat Freiermuth didn't even score over 10 points per game last year. I understand that, Badaki, I know that you see this team breaking out, but I still don't think that Pat Freiermuth is going to be in this upper echelon of elite tight ends that win you your weekly matchup. You can let me know in a second if you think I'm wrong. But just to help anyone in 10-team leagues, that's the first thing I was going to quickly address. Pat Freiermuth is a fine starter, but in a 10-team, he's not going to move the needle for me very much. He's just not going to be someone that I feel like is winning me matchups. And then even at the quarterback spot with Dak Prescott, I felt like I would have gone quarterback even, earlier. Like in this format, I don't think it's crazy to go Josh Allen at the 3-1. to go Jalen Hurts at the 3-1, to try and get, again, quarterback, tight end. You only start one of them. How can I get a positional advantage with those positions? Because I know I'm going to get very good starters at running back and wide receiver throughout this draft. I mean, you go all the way into the 9th round. Jordan Addison, I think, is a fine starter, right? So,
Right.
so those were the first two things. I mean, Brandon Cooks in the 11th round, right? So those were the first two things that I wanted to point at that that I thought we could have done maybe a little bit better at, or ways that we can identify trying to improve before the season starts. Can I go out and make a trade and get a Darren Waller who went in the 7th round? Oddly enough, I think I'd be willing to do like Pat Fryermuth, J.K. Dobbins, and will you give me back Darren Waller? Alvin Kamara is not ideal, but maybe there's a different running back you can target there.
Right.
So that was one of the first things that I was going to address. It looks like he's got Alexander Madison at the 13-5. So can you get Madison and Waller and send away Dobbins and Pat Fryermuth? To me, that's a great start, to giving yourself an advantage at the position. Waller's one of those discount tight ends that I think can lead his team in targets. So that was the first thing I was going to address, Badaki. I'm not sure if you had anything in mind, but
no, I can definitely see the thought process there. I guess I'll talk about Pat Fryermuth and Dak Prescott right now, because that's kind of the topic that we're on. I have alluded all season that I am really believing in this offense and Kenny Pickett and Pat Fryermuth. I mean, he finished tight end 7 this past year. And if that kind of stays within that range, or maybe just has an improvement this year, I can easily see him jumping to tight end 5, right? Tight end 6. And I feel like that is a good, with the price that you've gotten personally here with me. But I understand where you're coming from. I understand that, like, having a positional advantage in a 10-man league, it is massive. And that clearly speaks to this draft because of how high Travis Kelce went. And also Dak Prescott, he wouldn't be the first quarterback that I would have gone for. I think of somebody that I don't even see on this board, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see Daniel Jones off the board here. And I think I would have taken more of a chance on him with the rushing upside as well. Over Dak,
like he was drafted
over Dak
league,
Prescott right now, compared to where you took him at, where you took Dak Prescott at the 8-10. I would have taken maybe another wide receiver. You could have had Deontay Johnson there. It looks like you could have had a Tyler Lockett. You could have had a Jahan Dotson, a James Cook, a Treylon Burks, someone that Zach loves, and then just punted the quarterback position, because once again, with the rushing upside, I'm willing to take that chance. Or what you could have done, it's a riskier move. Go Anthony Richardson with the rushing upside, and then get another quarterback that's saying, I'm just going to go straight upside right now, because, if I'm not going to hit on those positional advantages, then I'm going to go with the upside in these later guys that I believe can really knock it out the park in their first year.
Yeah, I definitely hear you. The last thing I'll say on Pat Fryermuth, because I feel like we've hammered that point home. I feel like there's so many matchups, Badaki, in a redraft league where you're losing by like 2-3 points, on a weekly basis. Like not that you're losing every week, but the margin for error is quite small. And I feel like at the tight end position in particular, there's such a huge advantage going tight end early if you hit in this format in particular. I mean, there's over an 8-point difference between tight end 1 and Pat Fryermuth at tight end 7 there. You won't see that kind of per game advantage in any other position group from last year's finishes. But yeah, like I said, there was a trade offer I think is perfect out there if you can get it done. If you can get Alexander Madison from Team 5 here. So he's actually Alexander Madison, George Kittle. I wonder if you can get Alexander Madison and George Kittle, send away Pat Fryermuth, J.K. Dobbins, and then just see that's a starting point. You might not finish there, but that's a starting point for me. But yeah, Daniel Jones, like Badaki said, that's a player you should pick up for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely worth picking up. I would probably prefer him over Russell Wilson at this point. I know Sean Payton's coming back. But let's talk about the positives, Badaki, because there is a lot of positives with this team. Maybe we should have started with the positives. I still think you have a very good team. Your starting lineup right now looks like Dak Prescott, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle, Pat Fryermuth at tight end, and then in flex you have Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, and J.K. Dobbins. You can flex in Gabe Davis, Jordan Addison. But again, we have to keep in mind that in a 10-man league, that's a good lineup. That doesn't mean that you're going to, necessarily win your league. There's a lot of teams
Yeah.
out here with
Yeah.
good lineups, right? I mean, we have a team who has Pat Mahomes, CMC, ETN, Devonta Smith, Kyle Pitts. So, I still think you have some strengths. Getting Derrick Henry that late, I like. Getting Tony Pollard more in particular that late, I think was a huge value.
Yeah, that was good.
And if I was to point out two values in particular that I love from your team would be Tony Pollard and Jordan Addison. I think those are two very, very good picks that have a ton of upside based off of where you drafted them. But in a PPR format, I like the wide receiver room that you've built. I like that Pollard, is bound to catch a lot of passes this year.
Yeah.
And some people are worried about Tony Pollard. I was actually going to tweet out about it today. I've seen some people saying to avoid Tony Pollard, and I can't for the life of me understand why. Last year he averaged
doesn't make sense.
Last year he averaged 14 and a half touches a game. 14 and a half touches per game. Zeke averaged 16.5 touches per game. So keep that in mind. Last year alone, Tony Pollard had 2 less carries, and Zeke was still getting over 16 opportunities a game.
Yeah.
Zeke is gone. Even if Zeke comes back, he's not getting that same opportunity. But regardless, Tony Pollard on only 14.5 attempts per game, touches per game, was the RB9 in points per game, finished as the RB8. I think people are massively overthinking it.
Yeah.
So I think overall, clearly his wide receivers and running backs are a big strength of his team.
Yeah, I would say I love it. I love it as well. One thing that I wanted to point out, I know we were talking about the positive, but one thing I wish you would have done is gone a little bit more depth at running back. As much as I love Zach Charbonnet, he feels like a second half type of guy, right? And I think where I would have wanted you to go, and it's easier saying it now because of how early you drafted this team. Right. I think of someone like an Antonio Gibson, I wish he kind of took a chance on over a Zach Charbonnet with the passing upside, the PPR upside, right? I mean, in a redraft perspective, in a PPR format, you want a running back that can pass catches. Not that Zach Charbonnet can't pass catches. We just don't know what that's going to look like in his first year, where we feel a little bit, I would assume we both feel a little bit more comfortable. I think in the overarching things of Antonio Gibson's situation versus Zach Charbonnet's. That's probably one thing I want to nitpick right there about the running back depth, because if you really think about it,
sure,
you have 3 starting running backs in Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, and then J.K. Dobbins. If J.K. Dobbins goes down, doesn't feel the same, or Derrick Henry misses some time, whatever the case may be, your next backup guy is Tony Pollard, or Zach Charbonnet, which I don't necessarily feel comfortable with. Once again,
sure,
easier said now when you drafted this team 3 months ago now. So other than that, I think this is good. I know you took DeAndre Hopkins at the 6'10", just to throw some positives at you. I understand you don't know what team he's on right now. You're probably kind of thinking, what the hell's going to happen? He's going to sign to a team. And if it is a powerhouse team, his value is probably even higher than where he's at where you drafted him at the 6'10" right now, to be completely honest. If he goes to the Bills, if he goes to the Chiefs, I would even say maybe if he goes to the Giants, he can even be like a 5th, 4th round pick without a doubt. So definitely stay positive with DeAndre Hopkins. And same thing with, I would also say Keenan Allen. I know there's a lot of negative narratives around him with the injuries, but when he is healthy, he is a top wide receiver. In the second half of the season, correct me if I'm wrong, I know you said this earlier in previous videos, he was a top 12 guy when he came back.
So from his injury when he returned last year to the end of the season, he was top 3 in targets, receptions, points per game. Played a career high slot percentage. He was great last year.
Yeah. So I think overall, it was fantastic. And Derrick Henry, who is my RB3 right now, you got him here at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as the RB8 off the board at the 210. I think that's ridiculous. Me personally, I would draft him at the end of the first. Some people won't, but I see him coming back and really taking over. Not coming back and taking over, but continuing that 300 plus attempts on the ground, a goal line guy. He also got some work in the air this past year that I think goes overlooked as well. Over 40 targets in the air last year. That I will say one of the biggest years for Derrick Henry in the air. Is that going to continue? Probably not, but I think that's also really exciting to keep out on. But
Yeah.
great value on Derrick Henry.
Yep, I was trying to identify while you were talking probably the best team in this league. And one that's standing out to me in particular, there's two that I was going to point to. The first would be team number 9. To get Cooper Kupp at the 1-9, a player I would feel comfortable selecting in the top 5. First off, I think that's ridiculous in a PPR format. But the wide receiver room is very strong. You have 4 wide receivers you can start. The upside with Justin Fields, again, even in a 1 quarterback, the rushing upside that he's going to present, like, he is one of those few guys who could finish as the QB1. I'm not saying it will happen, but like there's that upside there. You have the upside of QB1, the upside of tight end 1 with Mark Andrews. Again, it's more unlikely that that happens than it does, but I love the upside of that team. And then you still have Dalvin Cook, which we don't know where he's going to be, but Dameon Pierce, James Cook, Rashad Penny, you can piece together a running back room there. So obviously every team here has its strengths, have its weaknesses, but that's the team I would be looking out for. But yeah, overall, well done. CrimeLord 69 is your name on Discord. Raw Dog Ethan, I think you might have changed your name, but I hope this was helpful. And any last bit of advice for him?
No, continue doing your thing. I mean, let us know what type of trades you have. Or you're going to send out, because I think there are some ones that you can definitely do, especially maybe trying to sell Dak Prescott to a team that doesn't really feel confident in their quarterback, hypothetically. Maybe if you can sell Dak Prescott to team 5 who has Tua that may be questioning him, and maybe pick up Daniel Jones and maybe get another wide receiver. Can you get maybe a Tyler Lockett or Rashad White, whatever the case may be, in a package some sort of way, whatever that looks like. I mean, obviously it's a starting point, so don't take those trades, for.
And I think Dak will be better this year than he was last year, but he's still not someone that I feel comfortable, in a 10-teamer. He would not be my ideal QB1. So
for sure,
I definitely hear you out there. But okay, that is it. I hope that's helpful, guys. If you want us to look at your in-season teams, are you playing in a best ball league? Are you playing in a redraft league? What sort of league are you playing in? Superflex, 1 quarterback, whatever the case may be. If this does well, then we're just going to keep doing this video series, trying to offer some thoughts, just raw off the top of our head as we look at your team, things that we might do.
That's right.
But if you want your team to be looked at by us, then go ahead and use our code LAND when signing up to the website Flock Fantasy. There's a link pinned in the comment in the comment section or whatever. But use our code, choose a Mother Flocker tier, and then DM us on Discord so we can get you all set up. But drop a like. Comment any advice for this person, CrimeLord, and we'll see you guys in the next video. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.